in addition to what I was saying during the presentation. So Eva helped a lot also with this presentation, and also Oresta Vamiris also provided information. So I'm thankful to them. And if you have some quick questions, we can discuss, or we discuss during the coffee break. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Yanis. If you happen to have any question, probably now is a good time. We have 5 minutes.
Okay, so questions. I understand this was a bit like bombarding you with information. Yes.
Thank you for the presentation. You didn't spoke about the scaling of the soil grains. How is this affecting comparison with the real case scenario?
You cannot scale the soil grains. Practically what we do is that we use the same soil. It's the same sand. This is a small complication. There are some rules of thumb, let's say, which are based on what I said previously, the size of a shear bands that develop. So if you make sure that your smallest structural element, your pile, for example, is big enough compared to the sand grains, then in general it is okay. But as Labros will tell you, if you go in detail, there is still some remaining scale effect because, okay, I will say this is from his PhD. So this is what we found there. You have your pile, you push it vertically. You mobilize shaft resistance and tip resistance. Okay. Now, the shaft resistance is a shear band that develops at the edges of your pile. In your model pile, you have 10 millimeters of pile, and your shear band will be mean grain size, let's say 0.2 millimeters, multiplied by something like 5. This is the rule of thumb. 1 millimeter. Okay. So your shear band is 1 millimeter, and this is comparable to the 10 millimeters. Okay. In this shear band, you will have dilation. Because the sand is dense in these experiments, it will dilate. And this dilation is leading, if you push your pile, it leads to significant hardening. Okay. In your real problem, your pile will be 1,000 millimeters, because it's 100 times bigger. Your shear band is again 1 millimeter. So whatever dilation happens there is, let's say, negligible compared to the 1,000 millimeters. So if you compare the two, and we have done this, you see that, let's say, your ultimate capacity is similar, but the dilation is leading in one case to hardening. In the other case, it's more of a plateau of the response. Okay. So there are differences like this if you go a lot in detail. But in general, if you make sure that you don't overdo it, and this is why I said, usually we don't go above 100 G. We try to go to 50 G if possible, so that we are not too small compared to the grains. If you don't overdo it, then these scale effects are, I mean, it's not totally immune to scale effects, but they can be, let's say, under control. They can be reasonable. It's the best thing we can do. There's nothing better than this. I mean, it is better to do a real scale test, but in a real scale test, first of all, it's much more expensive. Second, you don't have good control of the properties of the soil because the soil is what you found there. To do a real scale test, I mean, even in defense in Japan, which is the biggest staging table in the world, the maximum box to put soil inside is something like, how much is the height? Like 6 meters, something like this. So, and this is the absolute biggest staging table in the world. 6 meters, okay. Here we can do prototypes of 50 meters depth, easily. 40, 50, you know. So nothing is perfect, but it is as close to reality as possible. Mike has a question or comment.
Take some time. Give it some time.
The microphone is mainly for the online audience.
Yeah.
Is it working? Can you hear me? Yeah. I think just following on from that as well, if you need further guidance, is a great starting paper if you're looking at scaling effects and things like particle sizes, which is lead author Garnier from the IJPMG journal 2007. And people from here from ETH and Luke was involved with that paper as well. So if you're starting off with scaling laws and things like particle sizes, that's a great one to look at from 2007.
Thank you, Mike.
Any more questions? Please.
Yes.
Hi. First of all, thank you for the presentation, Professor. So I would like to know about some possible applications of a centrifuge for mass movements investigation or slope stabilization.
I mean, you can use it for. Centrifuge has been used for slope stability problems, or even for mass movements. So I know experiments that have been done to model, let's say, rockfall. This is possible. Or you can have a slope inside your box. You can trigger the slope. There are two ways to trigger it. You can trigger slope failure either by just increasing the G level. So you increase the G level until it starts failing. Personally, I don't like this so much because you are constantly changing prototype. Okay, but this is a method that is used a lot. Another way to trigger it is if it's a slope failure because of earthquake. So you put it on a shaker, you shake it, you develop your slope failure or your rockfall or whatever, and then you can see what happens. You can have some, for example, some slope stabilizing piles. So Jonathan in Dundee, for example, has done experiments like this. So it is totally possible to do things like this. Okay. You need to be careful a bit, especially if you have like large movements. The orientation of your box may play a role because there's something called Coriolis effect. It's an additional force that comes into play. So depending on how you place your container inside the centrifuge, it can be affected a bit. But this is, I would say, a small detail, probably. Maybe Mike will tell you that perhaps it can be a significant detail, but it's possible. Anything is possible, almost anything. Centrifuge is really an amazing tool. The complication is that you have to do everything in flight. So it's like you are in submarine. You cannot, let's say, communicate so well with the outside world. Okay, or you cannot communicate with a submarine. For this reason, you have to have the systems with onboard computers, sensors, everything, cameras, but then you can do anything.
Very good. Then I guess we close this. Oh,
one
there's a
more
question at the end. Sure.
Hi, is it working?
Yeah.
Yes.
I think so.
Okay. My name is Michael Spiridis. I'm from UCL. Thank you for your interesting presentation.
Thank you.
I would like to ask you regarding the earthquake events that you measure. When you scale down the time, you change the frequencies of the event. Then you scale down your structure, so you change again the frequencies of your structure. However, due to the scaling laws, you might affect, I imagine the mass is 1 over n power 3. The flexural stiffness is 1, if I don't make any mistake, 1 over n power 4. So this might affect the frequencies of the solid structure interaction system. So you might think that you are in resonance if you apply frequency that your system is in resonance, but that might lead that actually you are far or slightly away from the resonance. Then, and you know what I mean, if you plot the Fourier transform, this will lead to a slightly different. And then you might adjust this, or I don't know how you solve this. And how this affects also the vertical response of the system.
Okay, there may be some details that I'm missing, let's say, about what you are saying. But in general, in a centrifuge, it is possible to scale everything so that everything matches correctly. And the reason is that you are matching the stresses correctly. If you are matching correctly the stresses, then the shear wave velocity of your soil should be correct, okay, if you do everything properly. And then the frequency of your soil system will also match the prototype. It is possible.
I meant also of the equivalent system that you use, that you might need to adjust that of the structure for the present.
Yes, the structure you can match the frequency correctly in the centrifuge. Yeah, I would say it's better than a shaking table because in a shaking table I know that sometimes they put added masses, you know, to go to what it should be. But in a shaking table, the scaling factors are a bit more complicated, let's say, exactly because you are not matching correctly the stresses in the soil. So this complicates things further and leads to complications like this. But in the centrifuge, this go away. So in general, maybe I'm saying maybe you have some detail in mind that I'm not aware of, But in general, it is possible to match. You match the stresses. If you match the stresses, you are matching the VS profile of your soil, the shear wave velocity profile. If you match the shear wave velocity profile, you match the frequency, the first mode, the second mode, the third mode of your soil. It is possible. And then if you properly adjust the stiffness, scale the stiffness of your structure, plus the mass, then everything should be correct. Okay, there is a complication when the response of the structure is non-linear. This complicates things further because, okay, we hope that actually we don't hope. We saw this in the experiments in Dundee with the miniature reinforced concrete piers. It was possible to capture the non-linear response of a real system. So it is possible, but it starts getting complicated. And you will see in the literature, for example, Bruce Cutter and his group at UC Davis, they used in some cases some, let's say, some kind of plastic hinges, like weakening a bit the column so that they match correctly the stiffness because they use aluminum. They match the stiffness and the desired capacity of a prototype. So it gets more complicated when your structure is non-linear. But if your structure is elastic, you should be able to match everything. No, normally you should.
Right. So yeah, at the end is to the creativity of the experimentalist. So